Pechacucha. This is going to be a series of brief PowerPoint presentations. And so looking at your schedule, and if you didn't see on the way in, there was a chance to use a QR code to launch the agenda on your phones. But here's your agenda. We're going to start off with Clifford Clemens talking about learning lessons and making adjustments. That's going to be a recorded video. And then Aaron Neff is going to talk about carrying the torch. J.P. Hall is going to talk about Haltman and the work that's happening in their park. Ken Hudson from Whiteley is going to talk about the increased need in the pandemic and what they've done in response to serve. Stan Geidel from Country Village Creekwood Neighborhood Association, my neighborhood, special shout out, is going to talk about our dues drive and what we did to get folks to contribute to our neighborhood work. Neil is going to talk about what he's learned about relationships from his neighbors. Leslie is going to talk about embracing chaos and finding the fun through all of this. And then we're going to finish with Dr. Melinda Messinio. Many of you know Dr. Messinio, I'm sure, who is going to talk about trees, which is a personal passion of hers, and building your neighborhood legacy. And then you're going to get a chance to vote. You're going to get to vote on the presentation that you found most impressive, the presentation that spoke to you. You're also going to get a chance to vote on Neighborhood Leader of the Year, and you're going to do that through text messaging. For the folks who get to join us online, there'll be a website. So when we get around to 11:30, we will throw it up on the PowerPoint, and it'll be very easy for you to anonymously and quickly cast your vote for the presentations that spoke best to you this morning. And then we will feed you. It will be the finest box lunches in the land. Yes, I know that's why you came. You came for the box lunch. But stay for the awards in the State of the City. So we will break for lunch around 11:30, and you'll have an opportunity to lunch and gather responsibly. And then at 12:30, we're going to come out and we're going to do awards. We're going to recognize the folks that you vote on today as your favorite presentation. We're going to give out some neighborhood awards. We're going to give out some scholarships to leadership programs. We're going to give out some trash awards. And then at 1 o'clock, we invite you to stay for the second part of our time together, and that is Mayor Ridenhour's State of the City address. So this will be his second State of the City address, and the second time he's chosen to do it at the I.D.E.A. conference. So with that, it is 9:53. What I'm going to do now, and now that we're live, this seems like the right time to do this, take a break and give you a moment to go back out in the lobby, get some more water, get some more coffee, use the restroom, but please be back at 10 a.m. for our first welcome or our first neighborhood presentation via video from Clifford Clemens. So we look to see you back at 10 a.m. Those of you who have joined us online, welcome. We will be on with our first presentation in a couple of minutes. So thank you all so much for your patience, and we're glad to have you here this morning. You're so glad to see each other, and you're so glad to connect, and that's a big part of what today is about. So for our speakers, I'm looking at you who are going to come up. I want you to take note real quick. There's 2 microphones up here. One of them is going to the camera. The other one is going to the audience. So for those of you who are presenting, you want to try to be right here in the 2 microphone zone, all right? So literally try to speak out of both sides of your mouth. With that, we've got our first presentation, which is a video presentation, a remote presentation, if you will, from Clifford Clemens, Learning Lessons and Making Adjustments. So we've got a video from Clifford. So we are ready to roll that video.
Here we have learned through this pandemic, and the title of our presentation is Learning Lessons and Making Adjustments. But I want to use this time to bring in the members of our neighborhood association, those who have been active, those who have been with us for a number of years. A couple have been with us from the very beginning. And so we're going to start out with Vice President Peter Edsel. You'll see beside all of these names, or underneath all of these names, the lessons that they've learned and the adjustments that they have made. But I just want to she's a working mother of 5, a wife, and works in a lot of different community events and organizations. But she still finds the time to be our vice president and help out in so many ways in the neighborhood. And we have also Chandler Stidham, who is our secretary. And you see that she is getting used to in-person meetings. And one of the things we've had to deal with as a neighborhood association is the fact that we're not able to do Zoom because everyone does not have internet access. So we do the free conference call.com, where everybody's able to get on the phone, and we're able to conduct our meetings that way. So that is an adjustment that we all have to make by not being able to meet in person or even be able to see each other's faces on Zoom. Next we have Jerry Rollins, who is our treasurer. She lives in Hagerstown now, and so she commutes to Muncie, or she was commuting to Muncie when we were having an in-person meeting, or even the times now when we need to take care of financial business. She will make her way State Road 35 and to take care of the business of the finances. And so we're thankful for her for all that she's done, in so many ways, the sacrifice she has to make to get on the road. We also have John Hope, who is a youth pastor with the Riverview Church of the Nazarene right there in our neighborhood. And his youth group is used to help us out with school supply drive, passing out literature, and anything that we need. So he's also the father of 2 infants or toddlers, and yet he finds the time. He's also a working father as well, not just in the ministry, but also out in the secular world. And we have the Thomases, Willie and Eliza Thomas, who've been with us for quite a while as well, at least 5 or 6 years, and they live right around the corner from where we used to meet at the swimming club, but they still find time to work with us in so many ways. You can see that they have making adjustments to try to stay busy, so they look forward to the meetings because it gives us something else to do, something else to talk about, and keeps them engaged. And so we're thankful for them, as well as this couple, Dave and Emily Hayes, who you see their children, and then I didn't get around as much as they would like to, but sometimes we have to tell them to stop and not to do things because they want to do things so bad and be a help. And so we're just grateful for their love and their consideration of the time that they give. We also have Clyde Gordon, who is my brother-in-law, who, as you see, that he survived COVID-19 last year, and we're thankful for that smile that's back on his face now after having gone through that. And so he's gone from surviving to thriving in so many ways. All that he has done for us. If you see any of these people, say thank you to them. Thank you for being a part of the community. Thank you for helping out in the community. And last but not least, my wife Rebecca, who we have celebrated 39 years of marriage as of last month. She is my helpmeet. She is my right hand. She is even my better half in so many ways. I thank her for all she's been doing for the neighborhood as well as standing with us in the ministry that we are involved in. And I want to pay a special tribute to this man, Paul Funkhauser, who passed away a couple of years ago. He was with us from the beginning, and sometimes just him and I are in the meeting together. But he was a help in so many ways. His time, equipment that he had when we needed to do some constructing or some excavating. He had the equipment there, he had ideas, and some even implement even now. And so he is sorely missed, and we adjusted to his passing. And so in closing, I want to just say that for me, I hold fast to this scripture. It says everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven. So even though we're dealing with COVID, it's just for a season, but there is a reason for this season, just like there's reasons for all, even the natural seasons that we deal with. Some of them are not pleasant, but as the scripture says, this too shall pass. And so we're just thankful, again, to be able to be here today and to be able to share in this I.D.E.A conference. And we want to leave you with this as we close. The unity of the community gets the job done. God bless you and enjoy the rest of the conference. Good morning.
Amazing things can happen when a neighborhood discovers that it has a voice, takes action, and works to preserve itself as a wonderful place to live.
Patience is the word of the day.
This is exactly what is happening in Muncie's Anthony-Northside neighborhood because of the actions of our association. By getting actively involved, our association members are helping to preserve our rich history and better our neighborhoods. For many years, Anna was a quiet and sleepy association not doing much. We revitalized a few years ago and have been on the move since. Thanks to our board members, we have become a leading association for activity in the city. By far, our biggest project began in 2019 with the fight to preserve the historic pillars on Wheeling Avenue as part of the road widening project. When I, our association president, learned that the stone pillars would be removed, I went to work. After hours and hours of research, I discovered that these pillars have historical significance. They were once part of a property owned by the internationally famous Diamond Hills Hattie, a member of the Anthony family of which our neighborhood is named. The history and story is rich of the land that was sold to expand Muncie's borders and become our neighborhood. I reached out to anyone and everyone I could think of that had some connection to the road widening project to preserve the pillars. At one point, our board decided if we had to, we would remove the pillars piece by piece ourselves in order to preserve them. We gained press attention, and our newly elected mayor, Dan Ridenauer, and Councilman Jeff Robinson became involved in the process. I could go on and on and on and on because there is so much to the story. The pillars have been carefully removed and are currently in storage. We are hoping and waiting to see if there are indeed funds to be able to put the pillars back this coming spring as stated by project leaders. What we do know is that our association has done everything we could to preserve this artifact of our history. Our board also used 2019 as an opportunity to bring the neighborhood together and promote our association. We decided to plan to throw a neighborhood block party. With funding assistance from a MAP grant and a partnership with Ball State, which provided some activities, and volunteers from Rising Hope and Community Foursquare Church, two churches in our neighborhood, and Officer Mueller, who provided security for our event. Muncie hosted our first ever neighborhood block party in June 2019. It was small, but successful. We knew after the event that we wanted to plan another block party in the future, thinking about how we could bring more neighborhood residents to the party and in what ways we wanted to grow and expand. Muncie was clearly on the move, but pandemics have a way of changing things. Even though the world shut down and Anna was stopped in our tracks, canceling meetings in March and May, we decided the pandemic would not stop our efforts of making our little piece of Muncie a better place. Through many emails and some innovation, we began having our bi-monthly meetings again, meeting virtually and posting our contact information for meeting links on our webpage. Muncie was ready to roll with the punches. We connected with members and families in the neighborhood by offering our window bear hunt. People could put stuffed animals in their windows for children in the neighborhood to find while on family walks, making time of staying at home and being socially distant a little more bearable. Even though March 2020 was a difficult month for all, board member Lucas Pine saw a need for proper drainage to prevent flooding near the southeastern section of the neighborhood. He reported the problem in March and worked with Muncie Sanitation, City Engineer, and Delaware County Commissioner Sherry Reagan to resolve the flooding issue near the intersection of New York Avenue and Weber Drive. A new street drain was approved and installed by October 2020. In summer 2020, the Neighborhood Leadership Council announced that each neighborhood could submit a list of up to 10 properties in its neighborhood that it would like to see demolished. Neighborhoods were promised that at least a few of them would be addressed unless they were already in the middle of some other legal process. Two members of the Anthony-Northside Neighborhood Association grabbed their bicycles and went on tour. Several blighted properties were already known, but the streets were canvassed with one person taking photos and the other noting down the addresses. Added to the addresses and photos was anything that was known about the property, such as how long it had been abandoned or when previous rehab attempts had stopped. Then the list was prioritized, numbered 1 through 10, and submitted. In short order, we found demo orders from the building commissioner on 6 of our properties. In one case, the owners claimed to be rehabbing the property, but were treating it more as a hobby, so they'd accomplished little in 18 months. The demo order caused them to significantly speed up their work. Thanks to board members Lucas Pine and Susan Weiland for their efforts to beautify our neighborhood while helping to preserve our family-friendly feel in Muncie. In August, Anna began work again by standing up to a local apartment complex that violated a building and zoning agreement by opening a secondary emergency use-only gate into one of our residential areas and causing an increase in traffic. I again started making calls to local officials in the fire department and the plan commission. I looked up past agreements and stipulations from planning and zoning meetings years ago. Members of the neighborhood began monitoring traffic in the area, including possible traffic violations. In November, board members, along with our city councilmen and other local leaders, spoke at the area planning and zoning meeting to dispute the variance that the complex applied for to allow the gate to stay open. Based on our efforts and the precedent previously set, the Planning and Zoning Commission ruled for the gate to be closed. We would like to give a special thanks to Jeff Robinson, Brad Polk, and Jerry Dishman. Finally, as we wrapped up 2020, we learned that we could apply for another MAP grant and use the funds to assist in organizations such as a school. Board member Lucas Pine suggested partnering with our local schools, so we as a board decided to reach out to Westview Elementary. Although Westview is not physically in the Anthony-Northside neighborhood, as our neighborhood's elementary school. After much discussion with the school principal, Lucas brought to the board the idea of a financial partnership on a community garden at Westview. Our ANA board unanimously agreed that this would be a way to financially help our community and school. It is an exciting venture that we hope will come to fruition, as it will help provide for Westview families and can be an educational experience for Westview students, giving teaching opportunities in science and social studies, as well as an occasion for allowing students to learn to give back to their local communities. Muncie is helping to further the cause of civic engagement. So this is the story of how some ordinary citizens decided to become involved in our local community and ended up making some major impacts to preserve and better our fair city of Muncie. The Muncie story is not finished. There are more chapters to write and more changes to make. More growth, more beautification, and more involvement. But the story of Muncie is not unique. Similar stories can be written for any neighborhood and any neighborhood association in Muncie. It just takes some initiative and involvement from more ordinary citizens who realize it is time to take action and get involved. In closing, we would like to thank all of the businesses and organizations that have partnered or supported Munciana to help us become successful. Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Morning. Say a few words. On behalf of Anthony-Northside, thank you for this opportunity to share what we've been up to. Thank you for carrying the torch of making your neighborhood and Muncie the best place it can be. This torch keeps Muncie's magic shining bright. This was a glimpse into our journey to preserve and enhance our neighborhood into and through a pandemic and save a 93-year-old piece of Muncie's history. It's been a journey, and I'm very thankful to our neighborhood association members, past and present, for all that they have done. Thank you to the Anthony family, and thank you to Muncie. That's all.
Good morning. See how this works. Press hard, I was told. Good morning. I'm so happy to be here. Happy to tell everybody a little bit about this project in Haltman Village. Happy to hear all the other great, I think, projects going on in the city, and looking forward to hearing the mayor later this afternoon. So I was thinking as I was putting together these slides, you know, what's the hardest part of this project up to this point, and I think it's fitting it in all within 7 minutes. So I might talk a little bit fast as a result, because there's a lot, I think, to pack in here. This has been a multi-year project that is just now coming into fruition. Another thing I kept thinking about as I was thinking about what to jam in this little presentation was what is the takeaway I want you all to take away from this project? And what I kept coming back to was this notion that this is more than just a park, okay? So it is a park, and I think parks are incredibly important, but I think the intangible outcomes of what's happened as a result of this project are far more important, or just as important, as the park itself. So I'm hoping to impart some of that during this presentation. I was told to press hard. Am I doing this wrong? Okay, great. So to back up here and maybe provide a little bit of context, Haltman Village is just located in the northwest portion of the city. About 4 years ago, there were two things that happened in that neighborhood that were, I think, really significant. One was the closing of Mitchell Elementary School, and the other was the closing of Haltman Park. These were two community assets that provided a platform for people to come together and connect with one another, and had served that purpose for many decades. And all in the span of about 12 months, both of those assets were lost for a variety of different reasons. But Mitchell was really, really important, and I bring Mitchell up because it was kind of the rallying cry that brought people together to really start thinking about the future of the neighborhood, and how place really matters in regards to building connections and building attachments between residents in the city of Muncie. And so at that point, the city was proposing to demolish Mitchell and put condos there. And I'm really proud of the neighborhood who came together and started asking some important and perhaps difficult questions about whether or not that was the best decision to make. And long story short, we were successful in convincing the city to back off that plan and actually convince Ball State to move forward and actually make that an early childhood learning center, which to us was like a best case scenario. So I bring that up because it didn't get a lot of coverage, but it was absolutely 100%. The neighborhood association was instrumental in saving that building and making it viable for the future. And so on the high of perhaps saving that project, I love it. Love it. Technology was the word of the day. On the high of saving Mitchell, it was we transitioned to Halteman, our former Halteman Swim Club, which had sat vacant for at that point probably a year. And Halteman Swim Club donated the property to the city. Again, long story short, the property ended up going up for tax sale, which just complicated the issue even more. But again, the neighborhood association rallied around trying to find a positive solution to that property, and in a lot of effort, city council meetings, working with city council representatives, convinced the city to retain ownership, pay off the back taxes, and then fast forward, we needed to figure out what were we going to do with this site. We understood there was a need. Northwest Muncie is underserved in regards to public parks and playgrounds. In our district, District 2, there's not one public playground or one public park, so we felt like there was an absolute need there. We understood the value of parks being for, good for community health, good for economic development. But since we lost these two huge community assets in regards to the elementary school and the pool, we understood this space as being a way to connect people again. Connect people spontaneously, connect people via informal block parties or what have you. And so that was really the selling point. I can attest to this. I have two young school-age children, and I live on a street with several families, and all these children go to different schools. So there's very limited opportunity for these children to kind of meet each other, and it's, I think, a huge hindrance. And so this park is going to perhaps act as that kind of platform, and not just for children, but for multi-generational people to connect with each other in the city. So we engaged with Ball State University, more specifically the Landscape Architecture Department. Christopher Boss, Professor Christopher Boss and Professor Jeremy Merrill staged a studio project around this space, and we were thankful to get a grant from Building Better Neighborhoods. Thank you, Heather Williams, for that, which I'm convinced was seed money that has leveraged tens of thousands of dollars up to this point, and you'll soon hear more about that. One of the best things that came out of this was a community engagement forum that we held last February, right before the pandemic hit, which was well attended. Dozens and dozens of people came out that day at Mitchell, strategically on purpose. One of the great things also out of that was that we allowed children to kind of come up with what they would like to see at the park, and they came up with drawings, and we wanted to give them a voice because they're going to use this park just like everybody else. And you can see some images there. On the left, here's an image of kind of an example of what the children were coming up with. We really like this. The pandemic hit, and so we had to kind of go virtual and go online, which the studio did a fantastic job. They did a survey online where they allowed people to pick and choose what they liked from the students' proposals, and on the right is some heat maps that kind of showcase what the neighborhood and what the community was liking from these plans. And then they took all this information, all this input, and really kind of put it together in a plan that we could all get behind and essentially sell to the neighborhood, to the city, and to the community at large. We got a report out of this, and then this also allowed us to start thinking about fundraising. So there's great images that are so helpful and impactful and provide a vision, which is sometimes the hardest part. And the things that came out of this planning session was we would love to have playground equipment there. We would love to have some kind of water feature, splash pad feature, a walking trail around the perimeter of the property, 400-meter track, open space for flexibility, which is, I think, a great asset, improved courts, and so on. Great aerials. Again, just to sell this space and so people can start understanding what it would look like. And then it also allowed us to start getting some numbers about costs. What's it going to cost to put some playground equipment at the park? Which was incredibly important to start thinking about the fundraising piece, which was helpful in getting accepted into this program that Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority operates called Creating Places Indiana, where they match dollar for dollar funds towards placemaking projects. So we were so fortunate to be accepted in that. We as an organization, Halterman Village Neighborhood Association, was focused on the playground piece. The city has committed some resources too beyond this, but we felt like as a public-private partnership, we kind of have to put some skin in the game. And we went live first week of February, and happy to announce that we've met our goal. We've actually far exceeded our goal. So we've raised over $35,000, and the state via this program is going to match that with $30,000. We're actually in a stretch goal as we speak. So because things happen so fast, we were so surprised and impressed by it. We've stretched it out $15,000. So we're still raising funds. Our hope is to include some improved landscaping at the park and also maybe a pavilion. So I know that was a lot. I know I talked fast. Just want to acknowledge some of the contributors that have donated so far. If you're interested, please visit our website, halterman.org. You can find a lot of information about this project. It'll also send you to the link, Creating Places Indiana link, which is a crowdfunding platform. So if you're interested, please, no little amount is too little. To kind of, I guess, wrap things up, I want to thank Mayor Ridenour, who has been instrumental in this project from day one, even before he was mayor. He deserves a ton of credit, and without his support, this would not have gone forward. I'm convinced. I'd like to thank Carl Malone, the superintendent of the Parks Department, Dustin Clark, head of special initiatives for the city of Muncie, Gretchen Cheeseman, the head of community development for Muncie, and without them, this wouldn't happen. Also, my board members, Brad Polk, Brad Marshall, and Lisa Goodpaster. I'm certain I'm leaving people out, but again, thank you everybody, and this has been a fantastic opportunity. So.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Ken Hudson. I'm the Executive Director for the Whiteley Community Council. Oh, we're moving too fast. Hold on a second. All right. All right. Thank you for allowing me to share with you some of the things that we've worked through in the past year, and some of it, all of it is still ongoing. Just like anyone, well, let me back up a little bit, let you know that the Whiteley Community Council is the neighborhood association that resides over the neighborhood of Whiteley on the east side of Muncie, Indiana. We're an official non-for-profit, a 501c3. It's been established for about 55 years or so. One of our goals is to advocate in a meaningful way for the residents of the neighborhood, which is 56% at or below the poverty rate. That is a little bit more than the citywide number, 47%, and where we also see 95% of our students in the area are on free and reduced lunch. Not only that, we have a blight issue that stems from the disinvestment, the absence of growing families, and the absence of people moving in, where we've had to deal with as well. Most of our families, the median household income is just over $17,000, which is not very much for a family to take care of their properties. We find ourselves increasing our work tremendously. One of the first things we did was consider how do we continue to work in an atmosphere that we've never experienced. We've had to cancel everything in person, basically, which if you know anything about the Whiteley Community Council, we do a lot in person. That extends also to meeting with our residents face to face. We had to cancel the neighborhood meeting. Along with that was the Citizens for Central group that met at the high school twice a week to greet students and teachers as they came into the buildings and spread good cheer, and as well as the lunchtime opportunities tables had to be canceled also, which was a bridge building program for citywide students at the high school to introduce them to employers and college recruitment individuals as they graduated high school. We had to close our tool shed, and we had to make major adjustments to our food pantry as well to keep people out of harm's way. The food pantry, as you see the group behind there, consisted of 25 to 30, sometimes more, individuals and volunteers from the neighborhood and some not in the neighborhood. The pantry is a free choice pantry. That means we bring people in and we give them a certain amount of points, and they get to choose, like they're shopping at a grocery store, what they want to take home for that day, as long as they stay within their points, which in some cases would be considered as a budget. Pantry clients gathered inside the building with volunteers, which then could expand that number from 25 to 30 up to as many as 75 or 100 at one time in one particular place, which we knew was a risk and we just couldn't do. Clients are allowed now, after the adjustments, we had to eliminate large gatherings, obviously. We had to separate clients from volunteers. Now the work is being done by 5 to 8 volunteers preparing for 100 to 130 families. We had to reimagine the client lineup process and the distribution process, where instead of bringing individuals into the building and putting them in harm's way, we had to redesign another line that kept clients in their vehicles and stretched around the property. This allowed us to move clients through the line a little faster. It also meant we would be safer keeping clients and volunteers separate. It also enabled us to increase the size of the portions we were given to families. We all know, well, most of us know that the Whiteley neighborhood is in a food desert. The addition of Aldi's being moved a little bit and Fresh Time did not change the fact that that area is still in the food desert. It only reaches partially into that area in that 1 mile radius. Food insecurity and health was a big thing on our minds. We increased the food service events. This meant that instead of a monthly food pantry, we would go to a every 3 week and in some cases every 2 week food pantry. We did that for a period of time. We increased the order size of what families were getting. I told you previously that it was a free choice pantry. Now it's a pre-bagged pantry, which allowed us to actually give more proteins, more vegetables, more perishable goods to families in consideration of their children being home and in consideration of the need being much larger. We held our pantry in different locations. So the pantry is typically held at 1010 East Centennial. Avenue. That is Harvest Christian Fellowship Church. It's held monthly on the third Thursday of each month from 4 to 6 or while supplies last. But we had to take that on the road. So we did multiple events at Cambridge Square apartment complex. Cambridge Square is an 55 and older it's not assistant living. It's you have to be on some type of budget to stay there. So it's income driven. And just about all of their residents are in the high risk category. We handed out informational pamphlets. We hired a seamstress to make us a first run of 150 masks. That was before masks became available. So we through a grant, we were able to get 150 masks made through a seamstress. Project Benny also donated, I think it was about 200 masks or more to the Whiteley Community Pantry, and Open Door donated another handful of masks, giving us the opportunity to give out multiple masks to children. We had children's sizes and adult sizes. And some of the masks early on were handmade to take a filter on the inside. We could exchange the filter in a lot of the masks that we handed out. We delivered to homebound residents. So we had volunteers that would take food orders, and we had local pastors that would come by and pick up food orders, and they would take food to residents in their homes that could not make it to the pantry. We would set orders to the side. We would have people come back and pick things up. We would take additional food items to the child care centers that was in our neighborhood, and so on and so forth. And then we worked to reestablish our health and wellness committee so that we can address more issues in the neighborhood and do the best for our residents. Okay, funders of the utility. We established, the Whiteley Community Council established a bill assistance program. So we was very aware that the Whiteley neighborhood has a large amount of hourly workers. And a lot of those workers are what we considered frontline workers. They worked at gas stations, they worked at grocery stores. Some of them worked at beauty salons that had to close. There was barbers, and there's barber shops in the neighborhood that had to close. And it goes on from there. We started a bill assistance program. This is new for our neighborhood, but the bill assistance program initially reached out past the neighborhood. The initial funding helped us to address needs in the broader city itself. Some of that funding is still available, although we are receiving funding that is earmarked directly and only for the Whiteley neighborhood itself. Glick Philanthropies helped us with the grant. United Way and Community Development helped us to assist our residents and others outside of the neighborhood with utility bills and rental income to help them stay in their homes. We actually had the opportunity to help a couple of individuals who were in the hospital with COVID at the time, and their rent was piling up. It was a great honor and warmed our hearts for the committee to actually help those individuals. The committee itself is made up of myself and a small team of Whiteley residents who review applications weekly. Those numbers has changed just a bit. Right now, we are right at $25,000 in applications that we've seen, and we've helped over, distributed over $10,100 of support. Applications are up to, I believe, 52 at this moment, and 67% of those applications come right from the neighborhood. Let me back up one slide and share with you. That went a little fast, so I do want to share with you some of the ongoing things that the Whiteley Community Council had to deal with. So outside of managing our food pantry, redesigning the food pantry, adding a bill and rental assistance program, which also will consider internet services as a utility because so many children had to work from home during the shutdown. We also completed 2 beautification events in the neighborhood. We did a spring event that painted the curbs as you come around the bridge on MLK. You'll see the curbs are bright yellow. That was done by residents. The grasses in those areas were cut right there in front of McCullough Park. We also had a fall cleanup that we were able to do, which brought out about 45 residents, where we painted in the McCullough Park. We walked down our neighborhood streets and picked up loads of trash that was just tossed to the side. We cut bushes and mowed lawns. We were able to make significant steps toward the future development of our 1208 East Centennial Avenue property, which was purchased a couple years ago so we could change that property into a resource center for the neighborhood. And we were able to revisit and improve on our GO committees, which are education, community safety, and health and wellness. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Good morning. It's really nice to be back on the Ball State campus today. I've seen some old friends, and I really appreciate being with you this morning to talk a little bit about something very exciting that was able to happen in our neighborhood this year. My name is Stanley Geidel, and I'm the secretary for the Country Village Creekwood Neighborhood Association. Country Village Creekwood is a neighborhood of 350 homes in northern Delaware County. And in late summer of 2020, our board of directors for our neighborhood association had a question. What do we do about our annual neighborhood dues drive during the COVID pandemic and the economic shutdown? Of course, we're not a homeowners association. Annual dues payments are voluntary. And people were struggling then, and many still are today. Some are ill with the coronavirus. Still more have lost their jobs. So how do we ask people for money at a time like this? What should we do? Our neighborhood board of directors struggled with this question. We need funds to carry out projects and meet expenses in the neighborhood. But given the unprecedented struggles people are facing, what would be the best approach for our annual dues drive? Should we lower our dues? Should we perhaps keep them the same? Should we defer our dues drive until circumstances improve? What would help people the most? That last thought became our central question. What would help people the most? We look back at our summer membership drive for our community pool, and we remembered something that was really quite amazing and unexpected. Residents purchased a record number of pool memberships, a record. How could that be in the midst of a pandemic and an economic shutdown? We realized that people must have wanted something positive in the midst of all this worry, concern, and struggle. It seemed that people wanted to set aside their worries and fears and find some relief in the form of a community activity, a membership at the local pool, to restore some sense of normality in their lives. Is it possible the same principle might apply to our dues drive? Will people once again respond to a community effort in an overwhelmingly positive way, not only to help the neighborhood, but perhaps to help themselves find some positivity during these extraordinarily difficult times? We decided to try something bold. Instead of lowering our dues or postponing our dues drive, we decided instead to raise our dues significantly. We thought if the virus and the shutdown were unprecedented negatives, Let's do something positive that is unprecedented. So we did. Instead of our traditional annual dues request of $60 per family, we raised our dues request to $100. And not only that, we introduced tiers of giving. With $100 as our basic request, we asked people to consider a bronze, silver, or gold neighborhood membership at $125, $150, or $200. Were we crazy? We were about to find out. We launched our dues drive, and in the midst of all the real concerns brought about by the virus and the economic shutdown, we asked people to join together in a positive, optimistic outlook regarding our neighborhood. We painted a picture of all the many good things that have happened in our neighborhood over the recent past. We told the story of our successfully advocating for a comprehensive street paving plan. We told the story of our new lower sewage rates. We reminded people of all the improvements we had made to our community recreation area. Our neighborhood star was rising, and we invited people to remember that and to invest more in positive outcomes for our neighborhood. What happened? It was incredible. Association memberships immediately started pouring in. Not only regular memberships, but bronze, silver, and gold memberships. People were giving not the $60 of previous years, but $100 or $200. All because we reminded people of the many good things that were happening in our community despite the pandemic. And especially, people were given simply because we asked. Our previous record for neighborhood funding was a little over $15,000. This year, when all was said and done, despite these difficult times, we far surpassed that previous record, and we raised an incredible $27,785, which was over $12,000 more than we had ever raised. What did we learn? People want to be generous, even when times are difficult. People want to give. People want to be part of something positive, especially during difficult, challenging times. I want to close by thanking all my neighbors in Country Village Creekwood for their incredible generosity. And I want to encourage all of you to remember, when setting out to accomplish something in your neighborhood, be bold, be positive, ask for what you need, and people will respond. Even in times of real adversity, the inherent generosity of people, well, it certainly amazed us, and it may well amaze you too. Thank you very much.
Hello, I am Neil, and I recently moved into a neighborhood on Muncie's south side with my family, and this neighborhood has become known for the kinds of systemic problems that exist when governments and businesses and organizations and churches and people decide to invest in other places. Those who couldn't leave or haven't left We're left with higher rates of unemployment, pervasive substance abuse disorders, mental health and behavioral health struggles, more homeless neighbors, grocery stores closing, poor housing conditions, abandoned factories and businesses, unreliable transportation. And we could say a neighborhood like Thomas Park, Avondale is an under-resourced neighborhood. And some of my neighbors say, I wish I could move out of here. My neighborhood, like many of the South and East Side neighborhoods in Muncie, has been divided by socioeconomic and racial barriers. Neighborhoods separated by structures like railroad tracks and bridges and rivers and parks that have become ways of symbolizing to at least some on the other side, those who have and those who do not have. So when we moved into Thomas Park, Avondale, we had to enter into our neighbors' stories because for me, I've always been on the privileged side of those systems. About 4 years ago, I was talking with a friend about helping him host a neighborhood meal in Avondale that might help some people who lived on some blocks around the Avondale Church and the Ross Center emerge from some social isolation. My friend was a pastor, and so am I. So this seemed like good ministry work for us to do, and helping people find a place for connection over food during the summer. So we brought down a grill. We started grilling hot dogs and hamburgers and invited people, and we filled the neighborhood with smoke, and we stood outside, and slowly people started showing up at 5 o'clock on Thursdays to eat and talk. By the end of the summer, people had found this little lawn of this small church in this neighborhood to be a place of peace and a place of friendship shared over food. So we just kept coming up with ways to serve the meal after the summer was over. And I'm not sure that we've missed one Thursday in almost the 4 years since we started doing it. By the end of the summer, we had met people. I met people like I.D.E.A, who after knowing him for many months, he told me that the house where he lived did not have gas, electricity, or running water. And I had known him for a while, and I had no idea that he was living this way. I met L at a cookout, who told me in the first conversation that I had with him that he was struggling with meth and heroin and pills, and he asked me if I could pray for him so that he could stop. P told me that apart from his cats, the only time he ever talked to anyone throughout the week is when he would walk down with his cane to the neighborhood meal. R often tells me, and he still does, that I'm not tough enough to make it on the streets of my neighborhood, which is actually where he currently lives. And I think he's probably right. Jay told me when I first met them that I don't look like I dress like someone from their neighborhood. But now D, L, P, R, J, and many others, we're all friends now. We have laughed, we've gone fishing and camping, and we've eaten a lot of food together. We've rode bikes, we've cleaned up the streets and alleys together, and we've had conversations about life and struggles and hope, and we've cried together when that was about the only thing that it seemed like we could do. Almost 2 years ago, my family decided that we would just move to this neighborhood to continue to be friends, but also to be neighbors with these folks that we had come to know so well. So when the COVID crisis started, I feared the worst for my neighborhood. People not having enough food, being disconnected from medical and mental health resources, but most of my neighbors just hunkered down. These are folks who have known hard times. Life went on for many of them much as it had been before. Now they were just doing it with masks and social distancing, but they were still riding their bikes to work. They were still using public transportation if they had jobs. They were still walking to the gas station for food and cigarettes. But why weren't we shaking hands? When I would share sometimes the difficulty that I was experiencing because of COVID. Sometimes I would get blank stares and a pat on the back and maybe a knowing look. You're going to toughen up around here, Neil. Making a life and caring for other people with very little resources takes a lot of effort and creativity. This is what my neighbors bring to their families every day. They know how to stretch a dollar with no credit or the safety net of a family who can help bail them out when they get in trouble. So that's what Thomas Park Avondale has been doing during COVID. People in my neighborhood are willing to help those who are having a hard time, even if they're having a hard time as well. Being connected to hardship enables you to understand the difficult struggles that other people are facing. So sharing gloves and sharing food and sharing rides, that's what Thomas Park Avondale has been doing during COVID. I saw 4 neighbors with their own mobility issues helping a friend who was on oxygen move out of the mission. They strapped a mattress and trash bags full of his possessions onto the top of a Jeep, and they drove down the road 5 blocks to move him into a worn-out apartment. That's what Thomas Park Avondale has been doing during COVID. The thing that my neighbors have done this past year, since we have been together last March in this space, which is what they've done since the caravans and carloads of Appalachian immigrants moved to live and work in this neighborhood in the 20s and 30s and 40s. And then the few that stayed after the factories packed up and left, and then the following opioid epidemic, which hit this neighborhood and many others of our neighborhoods here very hard. The thing they have done, and the thing they have been doing amazingly for this past year, is taking care of one another in a way that only really tough people know how to do. I don't want to paint too rosy of a picture. Sometimes it's done begrudgingly. And sometimes it's done with arguments in the front lawn. And sometimes those arguments spill out into the sidewalks. And sometimes there's prejudice in the streets. This is a place like all of our places that have a history here in Muncie, and a history that we need to heal from. But I do want to invite you to come to this neighborhood that I have come to love. Come visit Shedtown and meet my friends and the organizations that work together to make this neighborhood a place where I'm proud to live. We even have a coffee shop now. How does a neighborhood open up a coffee shop in the middle of a pandemic? Because the businesses here, like the people, are tough and determined. We don't have everything here. In fact, we're missing some really important things. We don't even have a neighborhood association. We just have a group of people who live on the same blocks who are just trying to organize ourselves around positive actions. And that is the Thomas Park Avondale story during COVID. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Leslie McCrory, and I'm going to talk to you today about something that's a little bit more of an approach than a definitive project. I'm here representing the South Central neighborhood. We are just across the tracks, south of down tracks from downtown, right beside the Thomas Park Avondale neighborhood, and industry is on our east side. So it's my honor to be here today. I'm missing having my team here, but I am excited to be able to share with you our collective work today. Oh, go back just one. There we go. All right. You can start the timer now, though. All right. So this is our neighborhood logo. I hope it shows you that we as a neighborhood are a lively, fun, sort of loud, welcoming kind of place. It took us a lot of work together to get a logo to show that sort of thing. We said, not too professional. Can it be a little bit less, like more rough around the edges? And we're pretty proud to have it represent us. Something else that we've made that I was proud of in recent years was this 2020 neighborhood plan. Doesn't it just scream lively and fun and not too professional and not too stiff? Really, though, it's good work, and we've been so proud of getting to this level of organized and planned. We have a rough outline of activities and projects at the beginning of every year now, except this was 2020. It laughed at our cute little plan. You know the drill. We couldn't gather people in the park. We couldn't have our indoor planning meetings. There were not going to be any large volunteer work days this year. And we were relying on regular meetings to gain our momentum and membership, but we had to scrap that idea. And it felt like chaos. As planners, we do all we can to avoid chaos, and I found myself inwardly throwing up my hands trying to plan anything. How could we create a sense of community and support when getting together is the thing that's off limits? What follows is the story of how we learned to embrace chaos. Give it a big old hug. You see, chaos wipes our plans clean, but it also gives you a blank slate. And I think we'd become a little too married to making everything happen predictably and according to plan. It's not really our neighborhood. We're all over the place and fun here. We discovered that what we do when we don't know what to do is find the fun. So instead of getting too stuck on what we couldn't do, we started working with what we had. And what we had right away were some marketing funds sitting and an unofficial neighborhood mascot, a possum. So right away at the beginning of the pandemic in March, we made some prank yard signs to pass around with information directing people to our neighborhood Facebook page in hopes of staying in touch. We also had funds that we were supposed to spend on food that would magically lure people to our neighborhood meetings. But our neighbor Andrea, who was home with her own kids, wanted to share some pizza with other families adjusting to work and school at home. So we spent that money on 10 pizzas she delivered with cards on just a random Friday night. And you know what families in our neighborhood like even more than neighborhood meetings? A surprise pizza night delivered to their house. It makes people fall in love with their neighborhood. They went to our Facebook page without even being asked to share the fun. And we all benefited from seeing happy kids in a crazy time. It made us feel like we could make it through this together. Chaos has a way of canceling plans, but we can look at it as an asset. Chaos means that everything that's happening or not happening is a surprise. We weren't just stuck being surprised. We embraced the chaos and decided to make 2020 a year full of surprises in South Central. We have awesome neighbors, and we have people who walk and play outside in the streets all the time. Putting those things together, our neighbor Donna hid cash-filled eggs around the neighborhood around Easter time just for people to happen upon as they walked down the street. We held our meetings outside in her yard where people could just happen upon them while they were out walking. And they did. Young people applied for small Sparks grants and offered outdoor paints and canvases so kids could share their art. Lily here shared sidewalk art at several houses. Bob Ross would have been proud because happy little pieces of art were popping up everywhere. No one had to plan gatherings to spread this cheer. Giving people the means to be creative on their own was a great idea. Those doing the surprising were having at least as much fun as the people receiving a prize, so my Small Sparks grant was designed to let more people share. We love our front porches in South Central, so I celebrated them by giving people cash, which was a gamble, to spend on something for their front porch, but they had to share it. So I gave them $50 and told them to share $25 with a neighbor of their choice, and they did it. They bought seating or a welcome mat or a new welcome sign. Some started a whole front porch redo, adding in their own money. One neighbor was so touched receiving the $25 from her neighbor that she went out and bought her a return gift. The fun was multiplying by more than double. Letting neighbors share fun surprises with neighbors was now just the theme of our year. Building on Andrea's pizza idea, we held a parade with a banner and 50 pizzas and neighborhood info attached to bags of chips with a branded chip clip. I called it an all that in a bag of chips parade, but it really didn't matter what we called it because it wasn't advertised. It was a surprise. You know that problem we often encounter, getting people to give neighborhood money? Well, people were begging to pay us. They said this is exactly the sort of work they value, celebrating where we live and bringing the fun. This told us we found what was really important to people. That chaos that ruined our plans was a gift. It helped us find what was really important in our neighborhood. It doesn't require elaborate plans, though we will continue to plan and work towards long-term goals together as well. But what's really important is celebrating each other and the life we have here together. Whatever comes, we know we're going to make it through together. This is our team showing up to toast our neighbor Donna from a distance on her birthday because she's awesome. But can I be honest? I was exhausted by the end of this year from the constant innovation. And I offered a toast to the board in November at our virtual meeting and suggested that we just take December off, cancel caroling, and call it a year. But they said that they wanted to keep going and celebrate more, really. And that's the value of being in things together. So we spent the last of the grant money we had from our plan on 50 cookie-making gift bags. We gave groups of them to neighbors and let them pass them on to other neighbors, sharing the fun, building connections, keeping going, no matter what. We could have just canceled our normal things and called it a year, been sad that there were no kids blowing bubbles at neighborhood gatherings, no getting together to share food, no volunteer groups at neighborhood cleanups, though it was the best neighbor turnout we ever had this year. Instead, we went looking for fun together and found unexpected gifts in embracing the chaos. So much about what makes our life wonderful here isn't planned. It can only be supported and built upon. It's hospitality and having an open yard or front porch. It's the connections we have from walking and playing in front yards and on the streets. It's keeping it just a little weird and being open to ideas from anywhere and working with what we have and trusting each other to try new ideas and leave things a little rough. We're not your typical postcard neighborhood, and we've faced challenges of all kinds this year. Our team finds fun when challenged, and instead of being blinded by chaos, sees opportunity for surprises at every turn. And we plan to keep room to trust each other, to take risks, and have space for surprises in 2021. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. It's so great to be here. My name is Melinda Messinio, and I'm representing the Riverside Normal City neighborhood, and I'm so honored to have an opportunity to talk with you about a tree planting initiative that we've been doing over the last couple of years. And I hope that when you leave here today, that you will feel like you have the tools and the inspiration to start your own tree legacy in your neighborhood. So I'd like you to stop for just a second. How many of you have a favorite tree? Raise your hand. That is so awesome. I'd love you to think for just a moment about your favorite tree. And for those of you who don't yet have a favorite tree, I encourage you to find someone who raised their hand at lunch and ask them to tell you about why that tree is their favorite. When I think about my favorite tree, I think about my childhood, I think about my current neighborhood, I think about my community and my campus. I love trees, and I hope that you will share with me the importance of trees and thinking about how it can really be part of our legacy as a community. I heard this great quote a number of years ago, and it asked us, when is the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago, right? We know that trees take a long time to grow, to produce fruit, to bear shade. So when is the next best time to plant a tree? Any guesses? Today, right? Today. So we may have missed it 20 years ago, but we never miss the opportunity to plant the tree today. So I hope that you will agree with me that trees provide so many benefits. Of course, we know that trees help conserve energy. They provide shade in the summer to help us with our air conditioning costs. And when they lose their leaves in the wintertime, they make it possible for the sun's rays to warm our houses in the wintertime. So they conserve energy on all parts of all seasons. There's lots of reasons and lots of research that shows us that being with trees, being in natural spaces, even just seeing green is statistically related to better mental health. We know that trees are very important for our mental health. We know that trees improve property values, and if you've ever had an opportunity to look at houses and homes with trees, you know that they add a lot of benefit, not just because of energy and mental health, but they also improve property values within neighborhoods. And of course, they beautify our spaces, they bring in nature, they make things possible, they give us hope. So I hope you'll agree with me that trees are such an important investment and an important part of our neighborhoods and our assets within our neighborhoods. So, what I want to talk to you about are, let's see if I can get this to go, come on. What I want to share with you are the steps that you can take to start building your own neighborhood's tree legacy. And so our neighborhood has planted about 30 trees over the last couple of years. We've been going for more mature trees. As your neighborhood may have experienced, our neighborhood has experienced tremendous tree loss, either because of the emerald ash borer that has removed a lot of trees from our community, this region, in fact, the country as a whole. But we also are part of a strategy that was planting trees that are now reaching their maturity. We have a lot of the silver maples that are reaching maturity, and we're finding that they're all dying at the same time. How many of you, this is your neighborhood as well, that you're losing a lot of trees all at the same time? And I will say, one of our strategies as a neighborhood is to have a very diverse tree canopy that we're replacing it with, so that the next legacy, the next neighborhood will not be in the same position we're in, so that all the trees are reaching their lifespan at the same time. So that will be one of our parts of recommendation. So what you want to do is pick your date. Typically, trees benefit from either a spring or fall planting, so we'll recommend that you pick those as your time period. You also want to make sure you're picking great locations. There's nothing more disappointing than to plant a tree and find out that it's in the way of a power line and that will have to be removed. So we want to make sure that we're planting our trees in really phenomenal locations. This also means that we have to be thinking about the lines and utilities that may be really close by. Lots of resources that I can share with you to help you pick really great locations. I will mention that our city has an adopt a tree policy, and so if you are interested in adopting a tree that will be part of the treescape in our urban canopy, there are opportunities to get free trees as part of that strategy. So you can select your trees. Again, we want to make sure that we are getting trees that make sense for this region, that are really site appropriate, and that, again, there's enough diversity so that we have a staggering of trees. The other thing that we have to be conscious of is that there may be new invasive elements that might attack other trees. And so we want to anticipate that we may face future extinctions of other tree species as well. So having a diverse canopy is really important to making sure that we're leaving a long-term legacy for our trees. So what we identified were a number of neighbors in our community who agreed to adopt a tree. They were going to be stewards of that tree for 3 years. That's a really good time period for it to get well established, which meant that they were going to keep an eye on it, water it, tend to it, and make sure it was doing okay. Then we decided the date that we were going to do our plantings, and we reserved equipment. When you're doing a large-scale planting, we really recommend that in addition to just shovels and pickaxes and things that you would typically have, that you have an auger that will help you speed up the process. But again, as soon as you're doing those kind of deeper plantings, you want to make sure you've got all your utilities marked. And so 811 is the number that you want to call to make sure that you're not getting into any of those utilities. Now we want to recruit and prepare our volunteers, and we're so excited. We had everyone from age 6 to over 80 participating in our tree planting event. It was one of our most phenomenal turnouts. So we did it pre-COVID, and then we actually did a COVID-safe event as well, which took a lot of additional planning, as you can imagine, but we still got about a dozen trees planted in that day. So mark your locations, make sure that you prepare your volunteers. Of course, we're going to talk a little bit about the planting day itself, and then think about what are the short-term care and long-term care. That really first transition is the first spring after it winters the first time. That's the real critical period, so you want to make sure your trees are getting lots of good care. So it may be a little bit overwhelming to think about doing a neighborhood association tree planting, but know that there's lots of supports out there. There's lots of neighborhoods who have been doing tree plantings, and I would be happy to work with you to help you to put together your tree planting strategy. We have worked very closely with Kelly McClellan, who is our city's arborist, and she has been phenomenal in helping us locate trees. In many ways, she has helped us identify locations for trees. They have been removing trees as part of the city's efforts to get rid of some of the aging and dying trees. And so she has been helping us get stumps ground and getting sites prepared for tree replacement. So she has been phenomenal. She's also been part of helping us order our trees, selecting trees appropriately for this location, and planting or placing them for our crews to plant them. So shout out to her and her team. You may know that our mayor has identified a goal of planting 1,000 trees over the next 3 years, and I was talking to Kelly, and she said absolutely neighborhood associations are invited to be part of this initiative and campaign in making sure we get lots of trees out there and really rebuild our urban canopy. So there's lots of resources out there. I want to remind you again that if you're not sure which trees should I pick? Where should we plant them? How do we do that? Please reach out to me. And also, Muncie Delaware Clean and Beautiful is happy to partner with neighborhood associations. They also have shovels and picks and axes and things that can lend to neighborhood associations, and vests and safety equipment. So if you are wanting to figure out how can we do this on a larger scale, Muncie Delaware Clean and Beautiful is happy to help out as well. As I mentioned, 811 will be your best friend. You want to make sure you've marked all of the utility lines for everyone's safety, obviously. And it actually is pretty easy. You can just call, or you can go online and enter the addresses where you will be putting the trees in. You're going to need give yourself a couple weeks to put in the request. They take about a week to mark the lines, and they guarantee the accuracy of those for a couple of weeks after that as well. So thinking about that time frame to get those locations marked. So I'm so happy to share with you some of the photos of our neighborhood. So we were getting the trees. So we were going for fairly mature trees. This is one of our goals. Like we were thinking about the smaller kind of Arbor Day trees, which are wonderful. I encourage planting of all trees, but we were trying to go to a slightly more mature size. And so you can see that these are the trees that we have here. This is the neighborhood learning how to use an auger, which if you've never used one is a learning opportunity, I will say. So super helpful. Here we are getting the trees, holes dug, getting things together. You can see the equipment. And then here's some examples of our trees as they are making their home in the neighborhood. I know that we have lots of demands on our time, right? There's so many things that need to be done in our neighborhoods. And I hope that we all will think about what a collective benefit it is when we commit ourselves to building an arbor canopy and this legacy of trees. And so I'd like you to have just a moment with me, kind of a thought meditation as we think about the power of this potential legacy. So I'm going to invite you to close your eyes for just a moment, so if you'll play along with me. So close your eyes, and I'd like you to imagine the most empty street in your neighborhood. You see the sidewalks, you see the road, maybe there's a little bit of trash around, maybe some potholes, things that you're aware of as the snow has melted. And in the spring, you see your neighbors come together And they have decided that they want to start to plant the trees. And we put in these saplings, these seedlings, and over time, we watch them grow. Children are born and they take photos next to the trees, and each year we take progression trees. As they're growing, the trees are growing with them. And as they decide to leave and go and they graduate, they will take a moment of this tree that is providing them shade and support and reminding them of the love and the support of the neighborhood that nurtured them. Imagine these trees that could be our legacy and the legacy of our children and our grandchildren moving forward. A lot of people say, Melinda, these trees, you'll never see them grown. And I'm reminded, we don't plant the trees for ourselves. We plant them for our future generations. Open your eyes. Imagine those trees. They are grown. They are neighborhood's legacy. Please join me in being part of this movement. Thank you.
I really want to give you a hug. I've known Melinda more than a decade, I think, and going off script here a little bit, but I want to say it. She's just one of my favorite people in this community. When somebody speaks with that kind of heart and passion, you can't help but respond to it, right? And not just Melinda, but I feel like every presentation that we just saw spoke to different sorts of passion for our neighborhoods, for our communities. Different perspectives, different approaches, different problems, different solutions, but a shared spirit of love for a neighborhood, a shared spirit of love for the people that you live with, a shared spirit of responsibility to help improve the place where you live and work. And that always requires, or should require at least, recognition and celebration. So a round of applause for every presentation that we just heard. So with full recognition that everything that we just heard is deserving, we do want to give you an opportunity to take a special form of recognition for the presentations, for at least a presentation that you had a chance to experience this morning. So we're gonna vote for two different things here. We're going to do Neighborhood of the Year, and then we're going to do Neighborhood Leader of the Year. So what you can do is text in your vote. It is anonymous. We do not get your phone numbers, so we won't be asking you for any money, I promise, or spamming you in any kind of way. But you text your vote. So the number you're going to text to is 256-494-8350. Or for those of you who are following online, you can text or you can visit the link, the URL available. Both methods work. We do ask that you vote only once. This is not American Idol rules, so we're not tabulating 5 different votes from the same person. So please only vote once, even if you are really excited. So take a second and select. So you're going to text your vote to that phone number, and then it's just a matter of just what number. So Blaine Southeast, Anthony-Northside, Haltman, Whiteley, Country Village, my neighborhood for anybody who, I got to give them a bump. Thomas Park, Avondale, South Central, or Riverside, Normal City. So I'm going to leave that up here for just a harder beat or two more, and then we're going to advance the slides and give you an opportunity to cast another vote. I'm just going to look around the room. If I see you looking at your phone, I assume you're voting. You may not be, but that's the assumption I'm going to make. And when I don't see folks with phones, then we'll advance slides. You can vote for your own neighborhood, by the way. Looks like a few folks are still voting. This was free software, by the way. I think there's a paid plan. Somehow we avoided using it. So if you like this, it's swiftpolling.com we're using for free today. So thankful to swiftpolling.com for being able to use their software this morning for our voting system. Looks like a few votes are still voting. No pressure, but those of you who are still voting are in between this group and lunch. So keep that in mind. Which I just got the thumbs up, lunch is here. Okay, I'm going to pull up the next slide. If for some reason you need to come back to this, come see me. We'll get it to you. I'm going to try to pull up the next slide. It's giving me a friendly red. All right, there we go. So we've done Neighborhood of the Year. This is your choice for Person of the Year, which, if you haven't noticed, does line up with the neighborhood too. So these are the folks you had a chance to hear from this morning. Cast your vote in the same way. And then to encourage swift voting, as soon as you're done, those world-class box lunches I told you about at the first of the morning are available. So as soon as you've cast your vote, you are invited to the lobby to have a boxed lunch. We will be breaking for about an hour and then returning at 12:30 to share the results of the voting and to give out a few awards before the mayor delivers his State of the City at 1 o'clock. So as soon as you're done voting, you're invited to the lobby to grab some lunch. Thanks, everybody.